go.
We are ready.
Bang my gavel.
Cameras on,
Are we rolling?
rolling.
All right, today is Thursday, February 22nd, year 2018. The time is 4:32. Let this meeting of the Tilton Board of Selectmen now come to order. Please let the record show that John Scanlon hasn't joined us yet, but I do believe he's on his way. Let us stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so I think we know why we're all here. DOT?
I'm from the DOT, correct?
You're the Assistant Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, everybody has signed on the sign-in sheet? Yes? Tim, is that I see Tim Line back there, representative? Senator Gaines here? All right, why don't we have the three of you come up front so the audience can see you, and you may have questions directed to you. If anybody wants to speak when the time comes, please come up and identify yourselves and speak into the microphone.
Captain, just for what it's worth, I did get an email from, I invited the Executive Council, Joe Kenny, as well.
He's on his way.
Yeah, and there's an action.
Can't hear him?
I would like to be introduced to these people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
Can't hear.
Yes. Let's go around the table and introduce all of ourselves. Start.
I'll start. I'm William Cass, I'm Assistant Commissioner for the DOT.
Bob Guida, State Senator for your district, District 2. Glad to be here today.
Tim Lang, I'm the State Representative for Tilton and Sanford.
Catherine Dawson, Selectman.
Yeah, Constantino Selectman.
Ashley St. John, Selectman.
Peter Fox, Selectman.
All right.
Joey.
Thank you, Senator. And this is,
Joyce Fulweiler, Town Administrator.
and we have Gail Beswick, our Administrative Assistant, and our Chief of Police, Mr. Robert Cormier, and our Finance Officer, Tim Pearson, who's hiding in the back. All right, Tim, if you want to continue, you were saying.
I was just saying that there's an accident on 93, so anybody who was attended, I think Dennis was going to try and make it as well, and I think Joe Kenny was, but just south of exit 19 there's an accident northbound, and traffic is way backed up. So.
Oh, all right, too bad. All right, so we are here because we no longer have a road project with New Hampshire DOT. And perhaps you would like to tell us and the audience why.
Yes, I see it's up there, the Caliph Hill Road project. I know several years ago we had worked very closely with the town and working on how to address a number of the roads in town when the gas tax increase was passed in 2014. I remember you all had come down and we put together a plan, and we did some reconstruction along Clark Road. We had programmed Winter Street, which was planned to be paved last year. It's going to be paved this year, I think tying in with the utility works that the town is doing. And we had worked with the town on Caliph Hill Road through the State Aid Highway Program, which is a 80%, 20% match that with towns leading that project. It was going to be reconstructed essentially, and the town agreed after it was reconstructed that they would take it over. So we had entered into a municipal agreement that had been signed. It had been programmed in the program for around 2021, 2022, with the intention that as the program came, it would be funded. Good afternoon, Councilor. Just in the budget season last year, the DOT was instructed at the initial phase to bring forth a 0% increase budget to offset some of the overall costs, and as part of the governor's budget submission, we had cut the state aid highway program for fiscal year 18 and 19 in half. Through the budget process, as the budget got to the Senate phase, we were instructed to reduce our budget request even further by another $1 million+ dollars. And as part of that, budget constraint issue, the remaining state aid highway program funding was eliminated from the FY18, FY19 budget. So with that, currently the state aid highway program isn't funded. Whether it comes back in and whether it's funded in future bienniums is something to potentially take up. But with that not being funded, we looked at the revenue, or not the revenue, because there was no further revenue coming in. We looked at the balance in the account, and we looked at the projects funded against it. There was approximately $7.5 million in the state aid highway account, and we had $11.5 million programmed against it. So we had to. So we looked at the projects, and mainly the projects at the end of where we were programming in the outer years. We let the communities know that those projects were essentially canceled for lack of funding. And Tilton Caleb Hill Road was one of them. There were 3 other projects that got canceled. One in Hooksett, one in Bow, and one in Conway. And we also put on a number of other projects that were ongoing, we put funding caps. We let those communities know that what is allocated is all there is, and if there is cost increases as it comes forward to construction or to bidding, that those communities are going to have to make up the difference. So we have allocated out the existing funding in the account, and basically that's what the status was, and that's where we are.
Are there any future plans? It is your road. It's New
Yes.
Hampshire DOT's road.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolutely deplorable condition, and these residents, I'm sure, can attest to that and will.
Certainly.
Any plans to improve it, to make it, let me rephrase that. Any plans to make it safe?
We always want to make sure things are safe. As the letter went out to the town in early February, we'd asked our District 3 engineer, let them know the situation, because they were kind of deferring maintenance or any plans because they knew it was forthcoming for a reconstruction. So we've asked them to look at it, at what maintenance needs may need to be done, and if it isn't going to be reconstructed as planned, we need to look at the resurfacing program to see if that should be done sooner rather than was anticipated. There are a number of paving projects in and around Tilton in 2019. I know we have Lancaster Hill Road planned for resurfacing, Silver Lake Road. So we may be looking at some prioritization, that if Caleb Hill Road is in a much worse condition, that maybe that gets jumped up in the priority list than those other roads. So it needs to be evaluated after the winter and after the spring and where we are condition-wise.
Peter?
Isn't resurfacing just lipstick on a pig? It's going to last for a year or two because you've got ledge, you've got springs, ditching's poor. Aren't we just throwing money away?
That question has been asked quite frequently. If we had our druthers, if we had all the resources, we would rebuild the road. We don't have all the resources, so we aim to make the roads serviceable and maintainable and safe. You mentioned safety. We definitely want to make sure they're safe.
If you include the word safe, like Catherine had worded, and you used that word safe, we right now have several spots on Caleb Hill Road that in the wintertime, that are unpassable 80 to 90% of the time because of the drainage is non-existent there, and the ice just comes right over the road, and it fills most of the road, so it's impassable. I mean, we, the town, have to go up with loaders and try to break it up and dump tons of salt on it and try to get it passable. That's very unsafe. Not only is that unsafe for our residents driving vehicles, but it's unsafe for the post office vehicles, it's unsafe for the children in the school buses, it is unsafe on so many different levels. The ice that's on those roads right now in 3 or 4 different patches were the same ice when we took out Senator Forrester, Senator Hosmer, and Commissioner Clements, and you came with us on the trip. That was the same ice buildup, and it's just gotten worse because there's nowhere at all for that water to go except on the road, and it's just creating a very, very unsafe.
Understood. And like I said, we had, Plan A was the reconstruction through the state aid highway project. If that isn't done, if that program isn't going to be funded, I don't know the inquiries, and you may speak to some of the discussions you've had, but if it doesn't come back in the program, Plan B, we're going to look at what needs to be done, probably on a much more localized basis with our district forces typically before there is a resurfacing, so that it isn't completely Band-Aid on a pig. They will look at where there are drainage, where there are pipes that need to be replaced, where there are lenses, or where there are specific drainage issues. So it won't be reconstructing the whole road. It may be 50 feet here or 100 feet there, but we'll do what we can to make it, to improve it to the best that we can with our maintenance forces in advance of resurfacing.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Put the mic down for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. I talked to the Legislative Budget Assistance Office on my way up. And in fact, funds were taken from the State Aid Highway Program and put into the block grant program. I suspect that dispersed them out amongst a bunch of towns rather than just focusing on individual projects. A couple of things come to mind. I just spoke with the Transportation Chairman, Regina Birdsall, of the Senate, and the 10-year plan is open right now. All right, and I don't know whether we have the funds available, but we have the ability, providing we find those funds, to both fund and move to the top of the list priority plans for safety issues. And so I will be pursuing that. I sit on fiscal, so we have the ability to move money around within the state budget. And so I will be doing that because the problem really isn't the road. The road is the symptom. The problem is that DOT doesn't have the resources to do what they had planned to do at the time when they were presupposing those resources would exist. So we will be working very diligently to get that taken care of as quickly as possible. And I'll be happy to forward a letter to the board to that effect, both what I'm planning to do and then how effective we are and what we can get done. I think we'll go to the solution right away,
Question. So if that state aid 10-year plan money, see, our bond authorization runs out next year because we only have 5 years. So what are we looking at time-wise, and how much money would come out of the 10-year plan? Because, I mean, I'm feeling maybe I'm too close to this project and too emotional about it, but we've always tried our best to have a good working relationship with DOT. Yes. And believe me, I understand the constraints, the funding constraints that you're under. And I think that the municipally managed projects, and especially the State Aid Reconstruction Office, has done an amazing job in stretching out the funding that they do get from the legislature. But I felt that we had a really good solution going because we knew how dangerous the road was. The town was willing to take over the road. And I remember getting excited when the request went before Governor and Council where we were going to do an 80-20 split on the money because we knew it was so much. And I knew that the money wasn't going to be there, right? When we signed the project agreement, I knew we were going to have to wait for the money. Mm-hmm. And thank God I didn't go put everything out to bid, and I'm sitting on a set of construction plans right now. Because I don't know if I would have been told. I don't, and that's the other thing that has me upset, because I've always been very upfront. I get it. I know how it works. And so that we would hold back and make sure that the money was there before we committed a dime of Tilton taxpayers' money. Because I know how the state is. How many years did we wait for our money for our landfill?
Oh, yeah.
Did we get it all eventually?
Well, we had to do
Couple
a
years ago, right?
massive
Eventually.
get out the vote effort working with the New Hampshire Municipal Association to get all those projects refunded. So, and then knowing just what the condition that this road is in, I guess that's why I feel betrayed, because we've ridden, I don't know if you were on those days when
Yes.
we rode
Yes,
in
he
the
was.
cars and
Mhm.
we were writing down every single defect and it's like, oh, this is gonna be fixed. And then to have really, I felt like the rug was pulled right out from under, and that was only because I kept calling saying, hey, have you approved my RFQ yet? No answer. Every month, I can save you show you the list of every time I've emailed
Sure.
and called the office.
Mhm.
Oh, what's happening? And then finally I got the call, and they said, well, wait, we're still working on it, we're still gonna try and get something. And I said, well, please give me something in writing, because I've gotta let the selectmen know.
Mhm.
And we got the letter February 12th, Monday, February 12th. And here we are today. And I just feel so bad for our residents, because everybody really stepped up to the plate. And it's a safety issue. If we had known, then we could have tried to have resolved this sooner with
Senator?
other money.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm understanding that your bond authority ends town meeting 2019?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'd have to reauthorize.
All right, so how much are we looking at that you would need to do the project as originally proposed?
As originally proposed, I was
For the
just
state?
looking at the
So you've already
agreement.
raised your part.
It was, the total project cost was $2.675 million, and I think we had the 80% of that, which was $2,140,000 per the original agreement.
Yeah, $2,140,000, and the town's share will be $535,000. See, we have to spend the money before we get reimbursed.
I will tell you that I will be pulling out all the stops to get this in front of the fiscal and see what we can do to get it done this year. I'm not sure that can't be done. I think it's imperative, though, that you put your 10-year plan, since it's open right now, put this in the 10-year project, and I will carry the water that it's a safety priority project.
Oh, it
That will
is.
try to get you to the front of the line. There's all kinds of other towns and so forth, but you're my town. And I will make this personal to do the best that I can to get you what you have worked so hard to get.
Thank you. We have residents here that are from Califf Hill Road. Are there any of you that want to speak to the safety issues on that road that you experience every day?
Dennis Manning, 56 Califf Hill Road.
Get to know.
Let's speak right in? There you
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
From a safety issue, I deal with a lot of ice right in front of my driveway. I mean, we just happen to have a spot where the drainage is horrific. Well, there is no drainage, let's put it that way. But from another standpoint, I'm a fire commissioner for about 25 more days. I can tell you right now, response times for residents up Winter Street, up Califf Hill and beyond, if it's not passable, I mean, we're killing our ambulances in this district. I'm sad to hear that Winter Street's only going to be a resurface, because that's going to be another issue after the first winter. But I'd like you to keep in mind emergency response times going on these roads, because they just can't get anywhere, and it's tearing up our equipment. We bought a new ambulance, and we're still doing maintenance. We're doing maintenance to that one right now, because the undercarriages just get tore up. I mean, the soldiers' home, the veterans' home, right at the end of Winter Street.
Yeah.
That's a state agency. We've got Winter Street. It's horrific. Trying to respond up there for one is a nightmare. And it's just it's one of our bigger customers on that end, obviously, and I just like that to be considered. Again, resurfacing these roads, I think that's just an effort and futility. Thank you.
Does anybody else, Pat? Stand right up and...
Get Pat Clark from Tilton. He stole my thunder a little bit, but I'd like to add that I'm right across the street from his driveway. It's a relatively new house, and it was on a state road, and the specs for the driveway have been followed. They've been constructed appropriately, so now that road in front of his house belongs to the state, and any maintenance that needs to be done should be state maintenance. The ice got so thick, and Dennis tries his best. He's got a big hubba bubba plow and tractors, and he tries to get out there and do his best, but it got to be between 6 and 8 inches thick, and over a short period of time. About 3/4 of it is gone now because of nice days like yesterday, but It was very thick. In the height of it, I saw a car go by and hit the ice and go sideways on there. If there had been a car coming from the other direction, it could have been a major accident. Up the road, I'm on 55, up the road, about 90 Caliph Hill Road. I went by there about a week ago and hit the ice that is flowing out of that area on that side of the road. And it was the same thing. I felt like it was going to take the front end of my car off there. And I feel that even as bad as that is, Winter Street is the street that the veterans use. All the vans come and go there. I would invite you to drive up Winter Street right now. It's like playing Dodge car. I mean, you have to go back and forth from lane to lane to get up there. And Dennis is right. I don't know what an ambulance costs, but it's got to be about $500,000.
I think, well, the last one was for 205,000, 226,000.
Okay, so they're expensive.
Yeah.
And I just want to go on record as saying that it's really it's almost a deadly, almost something that's ready to cause a death if something should happen. So I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you stepping up to the plate, and it would be really nice to get something done.
Okay, good, thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Zach LaCroix. I live at 321 Caliph Hill Road, and just a few things. First of all, Caliph Hill Road and Winter Street, they're heavily trafficked roads. They're not just through roads. Individuals that come down to work from points north at the school, people get off exit 22. Caliph Hill Road is the road they take because they don't want to go through downtown. So heavy traffic. And like everybody previously spoke, every morning when I'm going to work, I'm dodging the ice dams. There's 2 sections every morning. You have to go in the opposite lane to get around them. So it's a very large concern. I live about halfway up on the hill, so I drive most of it, and it's horrific. I work at a car dealership. I consistently have to get alignments on my car because driving that road destroys my car. I know I'm going to get crucified probably for this next thing I'm going to say, but so taxes do wonderful things for our communities. People think taxes are horrible, bad, lower taxes is always better. Things we get from taxes: streetlights, sewage, roads, get our roads repaired. So in this instance, the state has essentially abandoned the town. So I'm just fielding an idea. Maybe it's time for the town to abandon the state and go about funding this on our own through taxes for the community. That's probably not a very popular opinion, I understand, but something's going to come to a head where someone will probably get killed on this road because it's just borderline impassable. I've lived in New Hampshire my whole life, and in the 28 years I've been on this earth, Winter Street and Caliph Hill Road, bar none, the worst roads I've driven on. It's unbelievable, and there's no reason for it. And it's extremely disingenuous for the state to give a last-minute memo saying that they're canceling. I had to scramble to get to this meeting because I received a letter yesterday saying that we were going to have this forum. So just a few things to throw out there. State, you're really failing us. We really need some assistance for it.
Understood. Now, as far as the, if I may, just as far as the last minute, and as we had it programmed, I don't know if you're planning to go ahead and advance construct it sooner than when we had the money programmed in 2022, or
No,
so, or but
the design was scheduled in fiscal year 19.
you were going to start the design, yeah.
So I
And I
sent
think-
out the RFQs.
Yeah, and I think that prompted, the hard look as well too. Before the town started spending money, we knew that the program wasn't funded, so we needed to reconcile the account with what we had programmed. So as soon as we did get our arms around that, and it was as part of the 10-year plan update this time, we did. It wasn't easy, but we wanted to let the towns know before they did expend money. There are several communities that are in the program that are part of that existing $7.5 million that have expended funds, haven't gone to construction yet, that we have capped. We have capped and told them that what is programmed is all you have, and if the project comes in higher, that's what it is. But I don't know where the gentleman went, but hopefully it wasn't perceived as last minute. So when we found out, when we got the things done, we made sure we notified the town, and it's the several towns and projects that are at the back of the program right now that were the ones that didn't make the funding cut. So.
Hi, I'm Nancy Trousdale, 394 Caleb Hill Road. When I stood up here, 4 years ago, I think it was, 5 years ago, I had a new driver. Now I have another new driver, and the last time that I was up here, I said, I don't let my daughter drive down the road because it is dangerous. It's unsafe. You have kids going back and forth on this road to the high school. Like the gentleman back there said, it's a main thoroughfare for all the kids in our school district to get to school. Yes, this is Caleb Hill. And, 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, whenever it was, my daughter, I told her, don't go that way. You've got to go around School Street and down and through so that you can stay on the right side of the road that you're supposed to be on. Now, we have Thomas, who is also driving. Thomas, don't go down Caleb Hill. It is not safe. You've got to go all the way around and through. Like the gentleman, I don't remember who it was that said, there's such bad ice. I was driving along the other way. There's a car coming the other way. I have to slow right down so that I'm not the one that slides off the ledge of ice into the oncoming traffic. Really think about what you're doing to our children and their safety. Not only that, the school buses, I have one that rides the school bus too. It's not safe. Mm-hmm. And those are our children that you're putting in to this position.
Understood. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill, a question for you.
Sure.
In the assessment of the 10-year plan and the priorities of projects, were we aware that this was the problem that it is, that the magnitude that it is? It's a school access, it's a veterans home access. Were we aware of those things?
Yeah, that's why we had worked closely with the town to get a project in this program. This program, the State Aid Highway Program, is tailor-made for addressing these type of Tier 4 roads that are primarily a town road, but they are state maintained. So.
Further question.
And in the grand scheme of the priorities of the state, fixing Route 3 and ones like that, those tend to be the priority projects. And unfortunately, and I'll admit it, for a number of years, the unnumbered state roads like Caleb Hill Road and other ones have suffered from lack of attention. So.
But let me just interject here.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Hill Road in particular is not just a town road. It's a connector road. Exit 23 is just a short distance down Burley
Mm-hmm.
Hill. Our Caleb Hill Road is a through road between two towns.
Sure.
And these residents can attest
Right.
how heavily trafficked. It isn't neighborhood traffic.
Right.
I'm sorry,
No,
Kathy.
understood.
Kathy Mitchell, 416 Caleb Hill Road. And I was here 4 years and 43 days ago, same place, and we said the same things 4 years and 43 days ago, and everyone was very concerned, and it looked as if something was going to be done, and then all of a sudden, a signed agreement is tossed out. Now, if I sign an agreement, you better believe I'm going to follow through, because that's my moral value code, and I'm appalled that for whatever reasons, and I don't care what the reasons are, there's a signed agreement, we follow through with that. I can also tell you about the dangers. My car has a stabilization activated sound that goes off every time I drive down Caleb Hill in the winter, because it's at an angle that is dangerous and my car may tip over. I also drive down watching real carefully all the other cars that are driving in the wrong lane to avoid the problems. So it's a double whammy as you go down Caleb Hill. And as Nancy said, it's not safe. It's safer to drive miles around and inconvenience yourself and put your life in danger. But the school kids don't have that luxury. They go down Caleb Hill multiple times a day, and it's very dangerous. When a school bus is in a left-hand lane trying to avoid dangerous icing conditions, there's something terribly wrong. And I also have a bit of a problem when we have to sit here and be patient for another 10 years. The time for being patient is over. That's gone. And 4 years ago, I said the same thing I'm going to say right now. John Kennedy wrote that for every action, there are risks and there are costs. But the greatest risks and costs are if you do nothing, if you're inactive. And the time for action has come.
Anyone else?
Senator Sanders, 90 Caleb Hill Road. I hear that if it doesn't get on a reactivated program, the state may be able to get in and do a couple of spot fixes and pave it.
Correct.
Well, if it does get activated onto the program, it's going to be how long until a shovel hits the ground?
Hopefully
It's going to
2019.
be like 4 or 5 years. So something's going to happen to these ice spews and the terrible condition of the pavement. Something's going to be done, at least at a patchwork, to solve some of these problems that you've heard about in the interim. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ashley?
I live on Winter Street, so real quick, I can just tell you, I know when something's a true emergency, when you see the cop car hopping down the road real fast, or if you see them doing about 10 miles per hour, trying to avoid the bumps with lights on. As a nurse, for the previous 3 years, I worked as a community nurse for the surrounding town. I can tell you an experience where, without violating HIPAA laws, someone in that general area of Caleb Hill Road had to wait for me an extra 30 minutes to drive all the way around because it was so unsafe to pass during their emergency. So someone's calling their nurse, wanting me to show up immediately, and I couldn't. So you can imagine the family doesn't care what my excuse is about the road. You know, their dad is more important. So, and that's one time, you know, as a nurse traveling down that road. I used to go all the time from Tilton to Samberton. You just can't do it anymore. It's not passable. It's not safe. It's not worth it. I'd rather take the extra time and go all the way around. If it's through Franklin, and unfortunately, when somebody hires a service such as a nursing service, they're not interested in that. That's not their problem. And I understand that. You know, I understand when families would be upset. And I don't think it's fair that this road keeps getting put off. I'd really like to know what the other projects are that take precedence over Tilton resident safety.
So I'm going to throw it out there. I wasn't going to, but I am. This is State Road. I believe it was, 1945 when you took these roads?
Probably.
For
Yeah.
state roads?
Yeah.
I can't even tell you when. I know it's been over 20 years that the state stopped doing any kind of maintenance on these roads.
Thank you.
A few years ago, you even lowered the priority of them on your list of state roads. So they're, you haven't done anything, you lowered the priority, so there was no hope of getting anything done. But these are state roads. If the state had been doing their part of the agreement, summer maintenance, winter maintenance, we kept our bargain. The state has not. We wouldn't be looking at an almost $3 million project because the road has become so unsafe, so deplorable. Why have you put these roads, and I'm saying you, New Hampshire DOT, into such a low priority, that they're so unimportant to the state?
It
baffles me.
Yeah, no, my experience, we have had limited resources, and we have prioritized the major roads, and I fully admit it. As a result, the lower tier roads, the unnumbered state roads, have taken a back seat to keeping the major roads up. In the most recent past, with the with the recent gas tax increase and some other things, we have been able to get back up to the level of paving and maintenance that I think we need to be at to keep up with the serviceability of these roads. But I will say, back to your point, that is keeping up with the serviceability of maintenance. Rebuilding and reconstructing some of these roads is a whole nother level of investment that presently is not there.
But they have not been abandoned by the state in the first place. We wouldn't be talking about rebuilding, reconstruction. And now I'm going to pick on the funding source, Tim.
Yeah.
Our legislative representative, and I know you're one of, 400 and so on people. However, you're our representative, and why would the legislature not fund these projects so essential to the safety of our residents? I know it's not a tourist road.
Yep.
It's not 93, but yet the safety of our residents, our school children, takes the lowest possible designation in the tier of state roads.
So I'm not sure if you're aware, the House didn't even pass a budget this year. Last year, it actually was given over to the Senate to work on. But that aside, we recognize. So I'm in Ways and Means Taxation. That's the committee I sit on in the House, and we recognize this year that there is an issue with funding for roads and how we get funding for roads and where we allocate. Generally, funding for roads has come from the gas tax, from road tolls, they call it, from registrations of vehicles and that kind of thing. But as vehicles are improving in mileage, it actually has the adverse effect of recovering more taxation to be able to fix our roads. So as I said in the House, in the recent bill I was in there, I said, so you get a car that's getting 50 miles to the gallon, drives 1,000 miles in New Hampshire roads here in Tilton, it pays a lesser tax than that same car is getting 20 miles to the gallon. So it's causing a funding source for us. And it's an inverse effect for us, is that as cars are getting more efficient and more technology driven, it's creating less money being available for us to maintain our roads. So there was a bill put forward to try to solve some of that problem and to create increased funding so we can do that. That's all I can tell you is we've identified, my first year in the House, so I'm trying to, we did identify and we did pass a bill to look at the future, and we see that if we keep on this technology path with vehicles getting highly efficient mileage, it actually drives down our revenues to maintain our roads.
Okay, but
So that's the I know that's a lousy answer, and I don't have an answer. I can tell you that I did contact the governor's office for this, and they do want a copy of the letters from DOT, and they're going to actively work on helping you with this. I stepped in the governor's office on Tuesday and had that conversation. But other than that, I can.
all right, so you brought up the gas tax.
Yep.
New Hampshire State Constitution. If we would stop taking money out of that fund, which was in the Constitution, what it's supposed to be used for, our roads, not our court system or our state police or other things that are loosely connected to roads. I mean, just because people get speeding tickets and go to court, I don't think I could make that connection to this. If we stopped siphoning money off of it, we probably would have enough money for DOT to do their jobs. And these guys love to do this infrastructure. I've talked to them in District 3. They're just chomping at the bit to be out there. But yet, that money is siphoned off year after year.
So I will tell you that after Joyce contacted me, I went and did my research, and I was appalled to learn that approximately 59% is what actually makes it to DOT. The rest goes to safety, and the rest is some that goes to other. Justice Department gets $2 million, $1 million a year for I'm not sure what. I agree with you. I'm not sure what. So it was the first that I was aware of it, and I promise you that I will make an effort of that.
Does
So as a
everybody hear
premise, I agree that if you ask every citizen what does the gas tax go to, they're going to tell you it goes to fix our roads, and they're probably not going to say the court system. So, and I believe in transparency, so I will make an effort to make that go forward. That's all I can tell you about going forward. But it was the first time I recognized it when Joyce brought it to my attention, and I started off anyway, saw my Facebook post, but I was actually last Sunday night sitting reading the budget and the where the highway funds go to. And that's what I found. It was 59.8% or something like that is actually what hits DOT.
That's great. Councilor Kenny, is there anything you'd like to add or say or help us with?
Well, obviously, it's the legislature that raises funds for our roads here in the state of New Hampshire. Government Council's role is to, look at that 10-year highway improvement plan, and try to prioritize those infrastructure projects. And we started that process. We started off at the, I'd say at the end of last summer and continued into the fall with public hearings. In my district alone, I think I had 9 hearings to look at the, prioritizing those infrastructure projects. The reality is, and everyone knows it, there's not anybody in the state who doesn't know this, that we have more projects than we can fund for. And so what's happened is DOT has shifted in its prioritization to preservation, maintenance, holding the line on what they currently have. And unfortunately, these secondary roads get hit the hardest. I mean, my travel from Concord, or from Wakefield to Concord every day, my car gets a beating every day. And there's one stretch I'm on a dirt road for 4 miles. So I live and breathe the roads like everyone else, and there needs to be a priority on our secondary roads. This one-time highway grant money kind of infusion, while it sounds kind of, conceptually like a good idea, you take some surplus money and you give it back to the towns and the communities. That's kind of, it's a one-time hit. Some communities were shovel-ready and they were able to do some smaller projects. But the list of projects that each municipality is confronted with, along with local secondary state roads, it's unfair. It's almost impossible to imagine the amount of money it takes, to look at these, road repairs and upgrades and infrastructure and bridges and all that. So, so with that, when the 10-year highway plan is completed, we'll pass it over to the governor, and then at which point, it's in the legislative hands. It's in the transportation committees. There was an attempt to raise the tolls here in New Hampshire, to provide more infrastructure within the highway turnpike system, which the governor took off the table. There was a, there's been, the governor has put $4 million into the 10-year highway plan for rail transit project, which I haven't necessarily been supportive because I think we need to take care of our roads. So yes, you've addressed the New Hampshire Highway Trust Fund, and there's a few other agencies that get their hands in that. We've been talking about that since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. When I was in the legislature, back in the 90s, and I was in there for 14 years, every year bring up the same thing. How do we get these people out of the, well, councilor or senator or representative, if we did that, then we'd have to create another line item for that agency, and we'd have to raise money in order for them to recapture that money if they got kicked out of the New Hampshire Highway Trust Fund. But in my judgment at the time, it would kind of delineate, what the trust fund is there for, and that the general public would see that the money going directly to maintaining roads with that, that trust fund. I don't think the public's fearful of paying additional fees, or in some cases taxes, but they're fearful that if you do that, that those fee increases or tax increases never go to the roads. And there's always been a distrust within the legislature over the years with the raising of fees or taxes to support road improvements, because in some cases it might go towards administration. It might get, because it's a part of a general fund pot of revenue, it might get redirected somewhere else. And that's something I don't know the state in the future years might have to look at how it actually finances the road system. I know when it comes to I-93, there's a big sucking sound. A lot of our money has gone down to I-93. We've created Garvey bonds. We've bonded out umpteen years to do these projects. There's the big bridge projects along the seacoast. doesn't help central and northern New Hampshire. And we know that we pay a large debt service from year to year to pay off for a lot of that infrastructure. So while we're building great infrastructure in southern New Hampshire, okay, where are they going to go? Because you can look at motorcycle week, numbers are down. I attribute that to probably two reasons. One is because maybe that newer age group doesn't travel on motorcycles, but if they look at their roads in New Hampshire on a motorcycle during that time of year, it's very unsafe, in some cases. So whatever Tilton wants, whatever Senator Geider, Representative Lang, or the Assistant Commissioner can pull out of their hat, I will write a letter of support to try to fund this project this time around, and then see if we can't shake the revenues of Concord to see if we can't come up with something. So I do have a couple of questions, Commissioner. So is this currently in the 10-year highway plan?
It's not.
It's not, okay. So we're really looking at funding that outstanding program that was kind of brought down to a certain level.
State aid highway fund.
The State Aid Highway Fund. So the State Aid Highway Fund is where our focus of attention needs to be at in trying to, convince the legislature and the committee chairman and the governor's office to say that we really need to do this now because of safety concerns. It's reached a boiling point. If we can give out money out of surplus to improve kind of our public school infrastructure system or to, the highway, grant program, we're giving out a lot of money in different little pockets around the state, but, this is a safety issue. So you could argue that, the money we gave to, school kind of infrastructure safety programs, that's a safety issue with that road. You can make many arguments and many kind of funding pools in state government to say, yeah, we need to take care of this now. So I'll write that letter. I'll obviously make my phone calls and see what we can do. How engaged is the governor's office? Do they just get a hold of this, or?
I'm not sure.
Tuesday. So no governor's office here tonight, representative here tonight? No? Okay. So
That's the same answer.
So I'm going to say that they're somewhat engaged, but I don't think they're overly engaged. So we're going to have to make them overly engaged for this project. So I see someone stepping up to the mic here.
Tim Pearson.
Yes, Tim Pearson, 377 Caleb Hill Road. So I would first echo everything everyone said about safety. The ice, I've had to drive one lane down Caleb Hill Road in the wrong lane and listen to my 12-year-old tell me I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, and for all the reasons why. But I guess I'm a little cynical. So I heard deferred maintenance earlier. So it's kind of insult to injury that not only was the program canceled for us, we were put off, but I'd like to know when District 3 was notified that, hey, you need to get out there and do some things about this road. Do what you can now. Why are we the ones going out and fixing the road, to Band-Aid it during the wintertime when this was something that was determined? I understand the reasons why, but did you send, or call up on February 2nd or whichever date it was and say, District 3, you need to get out there to these other people that have these terrible roads that have to be maintained? And here, they've saved money. So how much money have they saved through road materials, hours of manpower? That's what I'd like to know. So it's insult to injury. Our injury is having to drive that road every day, and then the insult is saying that, oh, we've saved some money because you were going to pay for it. We're going to do the 80-20 split. Now we're not. So was someone notified, District 3?
The exact same time we sent the letter to the town, we notified District 3 that this project isn't going forward and they need to get out there and look at it. It wasn't in the instruction of get out there and fix immediate maintenance problems, but as I said, we need to go out there and look at and come up with a plan B, because plan A seems to be off the table.
So I think it should be a priority, number one. The second thing is, so I don't understand, the priority of numbered roads and other things. I sort of cynically feel as though if you were the commissioner, lived and drove on these roads, somehow there'd be some work done on these a little bit more. But here last year I watched Sanborn Road, 132, repaved after it was one of my favorite roads to drive on because it was so smooth, so long, so perfect, and the whole thing got repaved. And yet on Winter Street, you lose your teeth driving down that. I don't know how we can treat veterans that way to the main entrance of the veterans home, and you can't go over about 8 to 10 miles an hour. It's absolutely shameful.
Well, I do know we had planned to pave Winter Street last year. It was put off for the town's work to be completed. So
Wasn't the town's work.
or the utility work, whoever was doing the utility.
So my last
company.
comment, and I
Gas
thank
company,
you for
sorry. Okay.
thank you for coming and listening.
So,
But the difference between listening and action, are we going to be here in 4 years in 2022? Saying, gee, we got a real problem with this road. What can we do about it? Oh, we're going to try to find some money, or we're going to raise the gas tax, or, all kinds of things with the governor, or, what's going to change? Because we really need something to happen. So please don't just go back and, this town here and that town there. Please listen to what we're saying and try to make something happen for us, because it is a dangerous road. It is heavily traveled, echoing everything else everyone said. And as far as I'm concerned, we've suffered more because the maintenance has been deferred, even beyond what should have been happening over the years. But once that project was approved, some years ago. So,
good. No, thank you.
please.
Understood.
Photo up right now is the main entrance to the soldier.
I've just got one comment, and that is I'd like you all to look at this picture. This is the main entrance to the soldiers' home, the veterans' home. This is how we treat our veterans in New Hampshire. It's a $37 million complex that driveway leads to off this road. It's a safety hazard, obviously. It's an embarrassment to the state, I would think. Terrible.
Do they have an access on Clark?
Yeah, they do.
A tiny access on
Nice
Clark.
access,
That's
yeah.
where the
That's not what the.
deliveries are made. This is where all the help comes in. I mean, all the ambulances and the visitors and
Fire,
everything. come
everything.
this way.
Right.
It's,
This is the
it's
main.
and the school's right down the road.
Didn't I hear from Dennis Manning that the road delays the response of the ambulance to the veterans home?
Of course.
That's unconscionable. Go ahead, thank you, Mayor. You may have some more.
Two gentlemen that spoke to losing faith. The team of people that you have here are people that get stuff done. I learned about this the 12th of February, and I told my aide, put it on the calendar, we'll be there. So part of the problem that is endemic to every problem that I see in the Senate, in 27 towns, is communications or lack thereof. And so I can tell you that we do respond, and I will be working diligently to get this repaired, and I will try to get it done this fiscal year. But it's imperative that you get it in the 10-year plan, just in case we can't reconstitute the funds to that state aid, highway state aid program. Our state and our state government is more responsive than any other state in the country. And I will tell you that without batting an eye. If you want to get a hold of me, you call my home, 24/7. I'll answer. I think the same is true of any down here. We will solve problems when we know about them. You've raised this to the point that we would be fools to ignore it. But more so than that, I am a veteran. I visit Commandant LeBrecq and her people regularly. They're, of course, on quarantine right now because they've got the flu problem, so nobody's allowing them out to visit. But you're right, it is an embarrassment. It is more than that, it is a safety hazard. And those types of things we take. So I can assure you for myself, and I'm certainly for Tim and for Joe, that this will be front burner, front and center, as quickly as we can get it done. The Senate's in recess for a week next week. It's been a grueling last 3, and it's going to be even worse the next month and a half after that. But I'll be working next week on this, and working, maybe we can jointly meet with the governor, and let's come up with a plan to get it done as quickly as we can, because you as constituents, taxpayers, citizens deserve better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another speaker?
My name is Linda Burns, and I live at 189 Caleb Hill Road. And from personal experience, I agree with Dennis about the ambulances. I had to call one for my husband, and they didn't get down Winter Street. They went down Clark Road because it was smooth, and took him to Concord from that way. It is embarrassing to look at our Veterans Home Road. I had friends come from family, and they said, "Aren't you paying your taxes in Tilton?" The road there is terrible, so we send them down Clark Road. And at 189, you come around the corner, and it's all ice. We wait, we're the first house on the right coming up the street, and we're waiting for a car to crash, go into the gully, or hit the tree if they're coming the other way. It's just very dangerous. And I know everyone else has said it, and I just wanted you to know my feeling on it. And say people from out of state are mentioning how bad it is. So, and for safety issues, I agree, it has to be fixed. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, when's that road slated to be repaired and resurfaced for Winter Street?
Winter Street was planned this year. It got put off because
But I'm asking for a specific month this year. When's it actually?
We haven't received bids. When we get bids for the district, in the district resurfacing contract for District 3 this year, the bids are on the street. When we get a contractor on board, I'll find out what their plans and schedule are. So right now it's planned in this summer. I can't give you more specific than this summer.
Joe, I know you're going to talk about this, Kim, but just one second. On that, Joe, part of the issue is not just resurfacing Winter Street, because we have a huge drainage problem in Winter Street because we walked it, it comes across the Veterans Home over to Bob Hardy's, and it goes across the street, and then it goes and it undermines our sidewalk, and there's huge gullies underneath it that we've patched, repatched, and repatched. And if they just resurface it, again, you're going to have that same problem. They're asking us, the state is asking us, when are we going to finish and fix our sidewalks? Well, we're not going to put $100,000 into a sidewalk if it's going to be undermined the next year because we are not going to fix any of the drainage issues. It's torn up. It's the worst I've ever seen it. I know I'm a bus driver, and you'll hear from this one, but in order for them to do it, the gas company absolutely destroyed it even worse now because it's all torn up and patched and heaved and everything else. It's atrocious.
Do you currently have a TAP grant or a funding source to do sidewalks?
Yes, we have our own. We have a reserve fund that we put in money each year, and some of the money, we spent some of our gas tax money on improving some of our sidewalks.
So in Winter Street, the intent is to put sidewalks on Winter Street?
We have a sidewalk there, believe it or not.
You just can't tell.
You just can't tell right now because it's all undermined because of the road and the drainage issues. And the state we've worked with the state on
I know Bill Rollins
District
has
3.
been out
Bill
here,
Rollins
yeah.
has been out, and we've worked together on it. We've used the small rock and try to divert some water off of people's property that it was washing away their driveways. That's how bad it was. But if we go this year, great. Let's make it nice and smooth. You're still going to have that issue.
So I'm still missing something here. So there's a coordination effort or potential coordination effort between the state doing the road and the town doing an upgrade of the sidewalks. But yet there seems to be the question of the water flow in the drainage.
There's no funding yet for them to repair the drainage issues right now. That's the word that we're getting from District 3 and from the state.
So is there a water precinct that runs through there?
Yes, they're part of the issue. The utilities, a water district, and the gas company brought gas up to the Veterans Home.
So, Commissioner, would the town of Tilton be eligible for that water drinking fund source of money, the $276 million that's hanging out there, that the state is giving out grant monies and
and small loan monies in order to do kind of that water system through there, or to do an upgrade?
It sounds like it might be. I'm not intimately familiar. That's the Department of Environmental Services. But are you talking about doing a water line?
They've
Or-
already,
I think they've already
in.
done the water
They did it
line.
last year along with the
Along
gas.
with the gas,
Right.
so.
Needing
So
to
that's
get
done
in-
and over with.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's done and over with.
We got it in so the state could complete their project.
It was a replacement, which generally isn't covered under those programs with the state or the feds. It's new construction usually.
So I'm still missing something here, because there seems to be, okay, we've got the gas, we've got the new water lines, and we now have to do the state portion, but we're still having a drainage problem.
So is the road just a resurfacing, it doesn't have anything to do with drainage and ditch work? Culverts?
I'll have to verify. I mean, like I said, typically when we do resurfacing, if there is drainage, if there are cross pipes, if there are things like that, we will replace cross pipes and things that need to be done before we resurface the road. And like I said, I don't know the specifics, but I know I've seen emails and coordination on the drainage issue with District 3. So I will verify. I'll check what plans that they might have. I'm not intimately aware, but they may well have some plans to do some drainage upgrades in advance or in coordination with the surfacing. Again, it would be limited. It would be more of a maintenance type of fix versus a whole reconstruction, but I know they're aware of it, and we'll see. But you said you heard that
The last I was told from the state that they were Bill Rollins was that they were not going to do, and part of the drainage problem is that it has to be re-engineered because there's drainage not up far enough, and there has to be new drainage connected to other drainage. So that's what we were told a year and a half ago.
Year and a half at least.
Right.
well, let me at least check on that, and with regard to the resurfacing of Winter
That'd
Street,
be
let you
great.
know what coordination and stuff is coming in conjunction with that.
Because obviously what I'm hearing is that if we resurface a road and we haven't figured out the drainage part of it, we're just...
Well, and that's what I said. I don't know. I mean, I know when we resurfaced here on Main Street, District 3 was out here. They did a bunch of the catch basins. They did a lot of work around here in advance of the resurfacing coming through. So, and I would presume the things that they can do and address, they would do. If it's a bigger wholesale reconstruction of the whole drainage system, that might be beyond their means, but I will check where we stand and what the plans are, and get back to the town with that. So.
Thank you. We have another speaker.
My name's Kimberly Gardano. I live at 9 Maple Court, adjacent to Winter Street, and my bus route actually covers Winter Street and Caleb Hill Road. I just want to make it clear I'm not representing First Student in any way, but I do want to address how dangerous it is to drive a school bus over those roads. And I know it sounds funny, but when I look in, it's not. When I look in the interior mirror of my bus when I'm going down these roads, the kids in the back of the bus look like popcorn. And that's going as slow as I can over these bumps and roads. And it's damaging my bus as well, the First Student buses. My airline disconnected from my bus yesterday morning. There were no kids on the bus, but that meant my air brakes had no air. It was caught, it came loose when I went over a railroad track. That's not a very big bump. So imagine what loosened it in the first place. These roads, it's crazy. And I'm terrified to go down Caleb Hill when there's a massive, recently been a massive snowstorm. That ice chunk that was mentioned by someone else that covered half of the road, I can't avoid all of it when it's that big in my bus. And it's horrifying to go over. Thankfully, after most of the major snowstorms, I didn't have to go down that way because the kids that lived on that road weren't on the bus. But I don't even want to imagine what it's like going down those hills and around those current turns and over those bumps in a school bus. So, and Winter Street, I would say rut and pothole wise it's even worse, but it is, Caleb Hill Road is longer. It's farther to drive over bad roads, and it's got very sharp turns and very steep hills. So, and I drive a school bus down there. There's children on those buses. I drive elementary kids down those roads, as well as teenagers. And I'm just trying to get down them as safely as I can without these kids being launched out of their seats, which has almost happened. So.
I think just to add to that, on Winter Street, where I drive the bus, I have to literally put kindergarten children near the window and have a third or fourth grader sit in the aisle seat so they don't get knocked out of their seat going up Winter Street at 5 miles an hour.
My daughter won't even take the bus because it makes her sick, living on Winter Street, going up Caleb.
Hi, my name is Tom Damon. I live at 401 Caleb Hill Road. I'm the last house on the right-hand side. You look out my front window in the morning, my front yard is flooded from the drain, the culvert that has collapsed in front of my house. This is supposed to be a state maintenance item. They come by in the spring, they take a couple shovels full of dirt, they shove it in the hole. That's not cleaning out the hole. That's making it worse. It goes down between my neighbor's property and my property. I have a river down there right now. Right in front of my property, there's an apple tree. In front of that apple tree is the road, and in the middle of the road's a boulder. Every year, that boulder raises up through frost heaves. The state comes down, guy gets out with a sledgehammer, beats the rock a couple of inches off of the rock and puts a coal patch over it. That's the solution to the problem. The problem is the road needs to be re-engineered, needs to be redone, needs to have a big barrier in it so that it can't be undermined. And of course, like this bus driver behind me said, you're going down Caleb Hill Road and you get to the Widow Perrin's former home and there's a sheet of ice there. There's a vacant lot and a stone wall right across the street. That bus can easily go through, get skidded on that ice, hit that stone wall, and flip over and wind up in that field. And I think it's going to be heck to pay if it ever happens. The other part of the road that's really bad is when it comes around to the curb and pest house road. This is terrible. It's an abomination, and it should never happen. There's no drainage. There's none. And it needs to be taken care of. Let's stop this and just do it. Even if the town has to take over it ourselves. You know, I've seen gravel roads that are in better shape than this. Well, I know we can't afford a road grader, but, you know, what's the alternative? It'll be impassable by spring. I'm thinking it'll be impassable. It's got to get done now. Not 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. You come back to us and say, well, the gas tax goes up, so we cut the budget in half. Come on. Don't give us that crap.
We have some letters that some residents from Caleb Hill Road sent us, and I'd like to read them into the record. Do you want to start, Pal?
Yeah. This one's from Sean Jeanson, 222 Caleb Hill Road. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter to express my disappointment with the New Hampshire DOT terminating the Caleb Hill Road project. Tilton residents have been waiting patiently for years since we first voted to repair Caleb Hill Road and take over ownership of the road. This road is in great need of repair and is a safety hazard. Resurfacing with pavement will not fix this road. I find it kind of ironic that the termination letter from DOT asks us residents to contact District 3 about any specific drainage or icing concerns. It is obvious that the state already knows of the specific problems with this road. This road needs to be reconstructed, and this is why. From the junction of Clark and Caleb Hill Road, Caleb Hill has severe drainage and icing problems for 0.5 miles. Icing for over a half of a foot occurs. Often, this area needs to be driven around in the opposite lane of traffic or to come to an almost complete stop while driving over the ice. After this area and just before the junction of Pest House Road, there is a spring that comes out of the ground just off the edge of the pavement. This spills over the road and ices severely and is very dangerous on the edge of the pavement. Dangerous on this sharp blind spot corner in the road. Continuing on Caleb Hill Road toward Samberton, there are 2 hills before you reach the junction of Range Road. On both of these hills, there are ledges protruding through the pavement, paved over last year but are starting to return. causing large bump cracks and water traveling along this underlying ledge to spill out onto the surface. The rest of the road to its end at March Road is riddled with giant heaves of pavement, and all sections between the icing areas mentioned previously are the same way. This road is dangerous, decrepit, and also does a costly toll on our vehicles. Please reconsider the Calefield project. A Band-Aid would not solve the problem. If you have a minute, you should take a ride up Winter Street also. The state of this road is almost non-passable. It's hard to believe we have roads like this day and age. I know the state has a long list of roads to be repaired, but it's time the town of Tilton sees some improvements. Thank you for your time.
Dear members of the board, we are residents of Tilton residing on Caleb Hill Road. Unfortunately, my husband and I are unable to attend the meeting. We respectfully request that you fight for all of our families that have to travel this road and for the ones that reside on Caleb Hill Road. We fought all winter with the unevenness of the road, the ice buildup, and not to mention the frost that has done a number on this road. It has taken a toll on our vehicles and on our backs and necks. I'm very concerned not about me as much as what it's going to do to our children that are riding in a car or a bus daily on these uneven, curvy, bumpy, and narrow roads, especially in the winter months. We are also wondering if anyone has traveled on Winter Street to get to Caleb Hill Road. It is a danger to all of us and our health. I travel back and forth on these roads to bring our grandchildren to school and actually dread the thought of driving to and from. We urge Commissioner Sheehan and Deputy Commissioner Cass to reconsider their decision to terminate the project to repair our roads. We also invite them to take a ride back and forth from Winter Street to Caleb Hill Road and back to the main road to get the full experience of what it does to us traveling on these roads daily. Sincerely, Sophia Lassard, 230 Caleb Hill Road.
No.
This letter is from Kelly Blyer, addressed to Tilton Board of Selectmen, Commissioner Sheehan, and Deputy Commissioner Cass. We're unable to attend today's meeting, but own a home on Caleb Hill Road in Tilton. We feel that the decision to terminate the project to repair it is unacceptable. The road is in poor condition, continues to deteriorate with every significant rainfall and winter season. Every day we see 18-wheel trucks, dump trucks, logging trucks, heavy equipment trucks, as well as normal resident traffic go up and down our road. All this traffic does significant damage to the integrity of the road. Caleb Hill is literally crumbling away on both sides, making it narrow in some places. The curve near Pest House Road is especially dangerous because it's narrow and falling apart on the sides that you are forced to drive down the center of the road. Isn't an accident waiting to happen, especially when there are school buses and large trucks that use this road? The potholes and damage caused by the overweight truck traffic is atrocious. Our daughter is a daily commuter to PSU, and more than once she has encountered a large truck on the narrow curves. We worry about our safety as well as the safety of anyone who uses Caleb Road to access the highway. I have attached a few pictures of the river that runs down the street with every spring melt and rainstorm. This is gradually eroding the street, and a big chunk of payments are breaking off. We understand that there are financial constraints, but this is a project that can't wait another 2 years or 5 years. We hope that you will reconsider your decision to terminate this project. Sincerely, Andrew and Kelly Blair.
This letter is from Melissa Hatfield. We have lived on Caleb Hill Road near the top for almost 2 years now. In the last 6 months or so, the road has deteriorated to the point where it is easier to go the long way around March Road to School Street than back towards Franklin to get to our daycare rather than to just go down Caleb Hill to Clark Road. There have been strange icing issues all winter, which have led to large ice buildup several inches thick in a few spots, specifically at the bottom near number 45 and 46 on the even side of the road, and also at the first sharp turn as you go up the hill. We are starting to have concerns about my husband's car even being able to go up and down the road because it is so uneven that his car may bottom out. The road is putting some serious strain on the shocks on my truck as well. Melissa Hatfield. All right. Are these the letters?
Yeah.
So, is there anyone else that has anything else to say before we end this gathering? No? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Theodore Vergano. I live in 9 Maple Court. I work for the United States Postal Service. I'm not going to represent them today, but on Winter Street, I can tell you a few weeks ago I was helping the town of Tilton out deliver mail, and I noticed I had a hard time just getting up there to deliver people's mail, even to the veterans home. I mean, I'm putting strain on my personal vehicle, and I mean, I've been on Caleb Hill as well, and my concern is what happens if that road gives away? What happens if someone dies? You consider that, is that the only way you're going to get action? I mean, I was taught that actions speak louder than words. I understand you guys say you're trying to do what you can, but these roads are horrible. I mean, I don't want to drive them. I can imagine everyone who lives on these roads don't want to drive them. I mean, this is ridiculous. And I'm sorry to say that. I mean, if you guys had set up a plan to get something done and then you backed out of it, it's wrong. You know, I don't want to take my vehicle out and help out another town while working, because if I blow a strut, I mean, I have to pay for that. You guys don't pay for that. I mean, I can imagine what the rural carriers on, you know, these carriers on Winter Street, when they have to pull off the side of the road, they're preventing people who have to go around them. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, that right there, I hit that bump right there in my car. That's just, sorry, that's just ridiculous.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. To address your concerns, again, there's a communications situation. The executive side of the government, the DOT, et cetera, okay, are responsible for the maintenance and all the work that's done. Okay. When the legislative side becomes aware, we respond. And I've known about this since the 12th, that's 10 days. I've cleared my calendar to be here, so that we will be taking action to try to remedy the situation by trying to find funds. If not, put it on the 10-year plan, and it will be moved to the top. And I've already talked to Regina Birdsall, the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, and we will get this taken care of. I'm going to try to get it done this year. But the point is, your points are well taken, but we can't solve problems we don't know about, and that's why we serve in public office. If you come to me with an issue, I'm on that issue, and any one of these members that are elected here is the same. If you're not getting results from DOT that you're happy with, write to the folks that control the budget. That's me, that's Tim, that's Joe. Okay, so we'll get on this, we'll take care of it. And again, funding we'll be looking for, and the problem we'll get it solved.
Selectman? John?
One of the things, the veterans, they have the handicap buses, and they all show up to vote. Every single one of them. They come down on a handicap bus in their wheelchairs. The problem, and this is a good point to bring forward, to a reason why we need to expedite it, is when they ride in these handicap buses in their wheelchairs, some of these guys, you know, they've been through a lot. But they can't go in the bus, because if you've ever been on one of those handicap buses, they go like this. Their heads can't take, you know, they could injure their necks just going out to vote, because somebody has to hold their head, or they have to put them in a neck brace to go down that road. So that's it, you know, when it goes forward, when you guys use the urgency of it, that would be a good thing to point out, is that handicap accessible, that road is not handicap accessible for a place that's dealing with people who are a very important part of our community. To be a good talking point.
I want to thank you all for coming out and helping your Board of Selectmen bring this issue forward. And I want to thank all our representatives for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you.
When can we all do this again, so we can have the accountability for the residents?
Okay. Okay. You have my email. sent you. Yes, Tim.
How are you doing? You doing all right? Busy? Very busy, yeah. It's been a busy year. We'll see you again. I thought they would be back up here, so yeah. Sometime I know I got to talk to you about Alan. I'm going to drive up there.
Oh, no, so did I. Thank you, Tim.
I'm thinking. Oh, yeah, I'd like to take a drive or walk along it with Alan in the spring.
You can see the bounces either they come give us an update. You ought to go all the way up, all the way down.
He's going to correspond to us almost immediately.
Bill,
Good to see you.
and the senator,
Yeah.
can we get a time frame of, go ahead, Kathy.
So we're looking for a time frame of when we're going to hear back from you, because
We'd like
if we
to-
don't, we're going to be
Sure, yeah.
doing this again.
We'd like you guys to come back so we can do another face-to-face and see what's been done since we met.
We all want to work together.
Yeah. No, she's back, yeah. She's actually in a Manchester meeting.
This is a real feel-good project. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I would say, just time wise, maybe like, middle of April, the end of April, I'm thinking that, nothing's gonna cross over the 10-year, if it comes up as part of the 10-year plan, that is gonna go to the Senate in mid-March. So if they have a month, I don't know when they're gonna work on it, probably like the middle of end of April would be a time to reconvene and find out something.
Yeah, I'd like to avoid that.
Thank you. I gave you all the credit. Tim, all the credit. So, keep it up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
They're recruiting.
Joe, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. License usually our point of contact. Keep in touch with her, she'll help out. Thank you. Yeah, he had said that the message he gave us was,
I can't get We're going to take a recess for about 5-10 minutes. Thank you.
we just need John Skin.
Are you
Go ahead.
Oh, Sandy.
you turn my sign, please?
I will.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sandy.
We're on.
Oh, she looks good.
Is it red?
I'd like to make a motion to enter non-public session for the purpose of discussing matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the board. No, that's not it. Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yes, that's it. Okay.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Clock, yes.
Constantino, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
Dawson, yes.
We are red, red is on.
Motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session as it pertains to matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself permanently.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think there was another one. Consider their sale lease.
Wasn't me.
It wasn't me, even though I had my hand.
Emergency, confidential commercial.
You see where my mic is, so.
There's a thing in
No,
here
that
for the
is
CBG.
Right.
Is that something I need to sign?
Yeah,
Because it was me.
three selectmen have to sign.
Oh.
Personal.
On one line?
Well, they always give us one way, don't they?
I forgot to wear my blue shirt today.
I was
Everybody's
impressed
in
with
blue.
how eloquent everyone was. It was like watching the CNN town hall last night.
Oh, our first meeting? I think they did great. That
Bring up
was,
that.
how do you sign this? It was very nice that they came out.
Right there. This one.
You talking Jake Pepper?
It was very nice that they came out to help us with this. I know it's their road, but
These go to John.
No, it was a setup.
Are we going at the chief's report, or?
well, Joyce is sitting here. Sorry, with the chief, can we?
Yeah, we can wait.
And she said you only had a few things. You're the third.
I just need you to sign that and give you this.
I think I signed
and
it. I did. I hate those.
Here it is.
I'm gonna
Winter
post.
Street. Spot paver drag shim.
That's even worse than an overlay, Pat, just so you're aware.
I was just gonna ask you.
If they're running, yeah, it's spot paver, they set the paver down on the high points and just drag.
That's what that says right there.
That's all that is, it's filling the humps.
Is this
Okay,
one?
Joyce.
This is the certification. Tomorrow I will have the budget form. So I'm gonna post the budget form in the warrant. So I'm gonna put, I certified that on Friday, the 20th.
So wait, I'm supposed to sign it before it's dated?
Yeah, because you can trust me.
Oh, okay.
And then I give it to Cindy.
I don't know where, but I saw it. Oh, and
So I go post one at the high school and one on the kiosk and one on the bulletin board, and we put it on the town website. And then Brock, in his report, did he mention that he had a bid for the catch basin cleaning?
Yes.
And the sweeping?
I don't think I have a copy of this report printed.
Yeah, I just, Tim had it, and his report?
Have his report, because he
I don't
doesn't.
know.
he
Gail,
not
do you
have-
print those out for?
Does anyone request it from us?
Huh?
Matters. And then we got a,
Yes,
a personnel thing.
right. On the overtime.
Yep, yep. And here's the, he had a bid from Avery. He still hasn't received one from Babbitt, and I can't remember the name.
Well, if he's waiting for other estimates, this is,
Oh, Mike Rabbit.
this is redundant, right now?
Pardon me?
He's got other estimates he's gonna present?
That's all he gave me. Is he gonna print?
Maybe, he hasn't heard from Rabbit,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure about the other one.
Is he coming in next week?
That's,
I mean, so he needs to make a pitch on those.
think he made a pitch, but, which may be why the other bid isn't forthcoming, but.
In his report, he made a pitch, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Oh, so he is asking us to approve that.
Is he? Oh.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
How many bids do we have?
Looks like
He sent out for 2.
he's waiting.
So I'm a no at this point until we get the second.
Okay, you want to wait?
What if we don't get
It's
the
up to you
second?
guys. If you guys want to go ahead, go ahead.
I don't mind waiting. I don't mind waiting. Can we,
Next week, we have the moderator at 5:30 and candidates night at 7.
But we don't have to have him in, we can just get the numbers.
Oh, okay.
We don't have to have him in, we can just
So if
say,
he has it,
here's
he
the
can
2
submit it in
bids.
his report?
This is
if
the
he
one I
wants to
prefer.
make, yeah, if he wants to make a pitch for one or
Right.
the other, then he should be here at,
He doesn't have
when's
one
the
of the
moderator
bids.
coming?
5:30?
So if he could come at 5,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Ashley, yes?
Yep.
Right.
Next week's going to be March 1st.
Uh-huh. Moving right along towards spring. All right, next, Joyce?
Just his report and talk about the overtime was the other thing.
Okay.
And the CDBG.
So let's talk about the overtime. That's not,
This overtime issue has come up in
that's
the
not a
past.
non-public issue.
And it's been in our employee manual that if you take a day off during the week and it doesn't, and you don't actually work 40 hours, you don't get overtime.
Well, that's obvious. Is someone trying to do something?
Well, there's extenuating circumstances. He talked to me in the beginning of the week about it. I'm with the policy. It is what it is. But the storm that was predicted was supposed to be 1 to 3 inches. And he thought he had crew to handle that storm for 1 to 3 inches. So we have one employee that ended up with a back injury. So now that person could not plow and is out. We have another employee that can't run the big trucks, and so that only left 3 of them to manage the storm that wasn't a 1 to 3 inches storm. It went to an 8 to 10 inch storm, as it says here.
We had maybe 6, and by like 9 o'clock, it was down to about 4. It was
Right, but according to our winter policy, we don't go out and plow unless it's more than 3 inches. So he wasn't planning on a...
Oh, so he trusts the weather every time? Wow.
When he's planning a...
We had over 8 inches up at my house.
Well,
Not down in
it's
the
getting
front.
to be.
It is,
Below
yeah.
It's getting to be.
Area's
I've
not as
got
much.
questions.
So, we're not in non-public, so let's be...
The issue is, some of this is, it's contractual people. If they take a paid time off day and they go over 40 hours, they get the overtime. They get that overtime time.
I think
It's not done on non-contractual people like the highway department, and they get called out all the time, and they don't get the overtime. So if they get called out and they work 40 hours, and then all of a sudden 45 hours, let's say 45 hours, and then Brock says, well, look, you guys have had a really hard week or whatever, and send them home 2 hours, they don't get that overtime. They lose that overtime.
Yeah,
But if
so you
it's
don't
the
work
police
over 20
department, they
hours.
get that overtime.
As I said, he didn't see the need to have his entire crew out because the storm wasn't predicted to be a storm that he was going to be plowing all over town. I mean, I know that I got at least a minimum of 8 inches up there.
Yep.
On the hill, at least. Yeah,
Yep.
so he ended up, because the storm manifested into something other than what it was predicted all over the place, he had to call them out. Where normally, because they were on that time, he didn't plan on using them.
Well, what he's asking is that if the board, if I'm correct, that there is a provision in the policy that says only the Board of Selectmen will determine what constitutes overtime to be designated as emergency overtime.
Right.
And the examples given include natural disasters or terrorist attacks or any other unforeseen and traumatic events which broadly and adversely affects the town of Tilton residents, town people, and property. So I explained our policy to him, that our policy is that paid time off and holidays or any other type of leave does not count towards hours worked. Our policy also has when you're called in, the only requirement is that when you're called in, you get a minimum of 2 hours at your regular pay. It doesn't say when you're called in, you're going to get time and a half. It says that you only get time and a half if during that work week your hours worked exceed 40 and you happen to get called in,
Right.
then you get paid at time and a half. But last weekend, because he called them in at like 2 a.m. Sunday.
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning on a Sunday, so Sunday's still in our work week. And they ended up working 17 hours. And for 2 of the employees, because earlier in the week they had bona fide, legitimate paid time off, they're, like for one employee, because he was sick those 3 days, when you add his paid time off plus the hours worked, I think it's only like 8 of those hours would have been considered overtime if he had worked.
I mean, this is a very common policy. I've never heard of anything different other than the police department. And that's what we're contracted with, under contract.
This isn't the police department.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm not sure. I feel like if Brock needs a clarification with the policy, I wish he'd email us or something so we don't have to just...
Well, he did. Well, he came and spoke with me, and then he came and spoke.
But now we're talking about it here. I mean, the
He
policy
said
for a
he
reason.
needs to talk to the Board of Selectmen, but he couldn't be here tonight.
Right.
So if you want him to speak to this,
But I'm saying-
he can come next week.
We could email him a clarification. Joyce, you could email, or a copy of the policy.
No, we have. It's just
Yeah.
that he's asking for the board to declare that day emergency overtime.
Right.
So that those individuals.
As an unforeseen emergency.
So they
Yeah.
could receive
I'm having trouble
those 2
with that.
employees.
Right.
The fact that the weather forecasters blew a forecast, they do it all the time.
And again, what I think it's his job to let his employees know about the policy, to manage his budget. So, you know, if he needs a clarification with the policy, if he could just check with you first. I feel like he keeps bringing policies to us, or...
No.
He's
He came to
using the
me.
policy tonight.
He did come
He's
to me, and
using
I
it.
said, this is the policy, and I explained it to him, and he went back
But I
and
think
talked
in
with
the
the
policy it
guys.
says, you know, under emergent situations.
He's asking for an exception to the rule.
Exactly.
Yes.
In his
Well,
reality.
he's asking us to recognize that there was an emergency situation, but I'm thinking this conversation would better be taking place in front of Brock next week.
Sure.
Because I did say to him, when he came up, I said, look, I'm not the Board of Selectmen, you're welcome to talk to me, and we went over the policy,
Well, I won't be here next week, so if we could not vote on anything or agree to
so we
anything.
could go, so.
Can I ask a question on this?
we could-
Have we ever vetted this language through New Hampshire Municipal Association?
I think
Every time this issue comes up, and way back in Sandy Plessner's days, we've had issues with this kind of language in this particular venue, with the highway and overtime and paid time off and...
So let's take it out.
and I believe their response to us is to have our attorney look at it, is it not? I know it was when we first created it.
In answer to your question, this has all been the policy since 2008, January 1 of 2008. It hasn't changed.
Oh, it has changed. In 2008, it changed.
Right.
Because they used to get overtime
Right.
if they had a paid time, sick day or paid time off day during the week, and that changed.
We treated him like the PD.
Yeah.
You treated them exactly like the PD, and then you took it away and said, no, we're not going to treat you like the PD. We're going to treat you like something different.
Like the
Like
way,
everybody else
like the way I get
has a
treated.
job.
No, it's my recollection
I'm like, overtime, what's
that
that?
when the selectmen at the time wrote the policy, the selectmen at the time adopted the policy. The department heads had an opportunity to meet, and I've saved all those notes, to meet with the board to express our concerns and whatever. The board adopted their policy, it went into place, and then at the time of the union negotiations, they went in and they said, here's the policy, we want you on our policy. And that's when the police came on our
So
policy.
who wrote in this where it says, paid time off, holiday leaves of absence, and other time off benefits are not counted as time work for purposes of overtime, except when called in by the department head.
That was discussed a while back when we decided to update the employee manual. It is being revised as we speak with those notations. But that
has not been approved.
that has not been
Why would
approved.
that be written in there?
It's somebody's notes.
It was notes from what was discussed at a meeting, so we can either revise that, accept it or not.
So those pages are not from the approved manual.
Correct.
So let's have Brock come in.
We need to update that manual.
What is the date?
Before you leave.
Not next Thursday, but
It's
let's have
everything.
Ashley
No,
will be here the next
no,
Thursday.
there's only three things that have been approved to the manual, that notices have gone out to people, but we haven't actually incorporated them into the manual yet. They're amendments to the manual. So and there are a couple other things. That was one of them, the holiday one. What was the other one? And that
I
one.
can't recall it right now.
And I just want to clarify, so he's not going to be getting paid overtime in his check this week?
That's correct. Yes, we can double check. You can look at his.
Well, he shouldn't be, because the only way he would be is if the selectmen made an exception to it.
Right.
So have him come in, not next week, but the week after?
Better check it, because he might have anticipated we'd say
No.
something.
No, I don't.
No.
No, Joyce, I walked in on a conversation Joyce were having, it was very clear.
And can we talk about the
And I-
policy too, who's
and I
making
processed
changes to
the,
that?
They're making changes to it only when we approve them.
All amendments to the employee policy can only be made if the
By
Board of
us.
Selectmen approves them.
Right.
And
These are just notes
And we
that she
keep
copied.
track of in payroll, weekly payroll, there's always an exception report. And those go back to, Tim started those back in 2008. So anytime that they've made an exception to the policy, we have it documented.
So, shall we have him come in instead of next week to discuss the sweeping the week after? So he only has to come in 1 week? Is that all right?
Well, if they can submit bids, then we can always
Yeah.
vote also.
That individual had 3 days of paid time.
Next
off,
week's candidates night, you're really not going to get
17
much done.
hours of.
That's why I think he's coming in the opposite week.
Okay.
We were gonna have him at 5 next week.
So the 8th, we'll have them come in.
Is that okay, John?
And,
So no decision on that until the 8th.
okay, and then I can come up with those, pull out those there are 3 things I remember.
You all set, Joyce?
That's it.
You said something about CDBG?
I meant to look to see.
I think it was
So
something.
that was an article we did, but there was just one small movie.
Just one?
What? Right.
Slap
Those
him.
$2 amounts. One was the selectmen's recommended, and the other was the budget committee recommended. It wasn't the prior year budget.
I thought it was a nice article.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I didn't even
Oh, I
notice.
always screw something up. You can't give me numbers. I don't deal with numbers. Well, I apologize for that, sincerely. Sorry.
But it was good to get out the information on the 79E. Yes, this is all set.
It was embarrassing hearing being mentioned at your meeting last week, by the way.
Say what?
I was embarrassed to listen to your minutes of the video and hear you talk about me.
Oh, what did I say?
You just mentioned my dinner.
Oh.
It was easy.
Okay. Chief, do you have a report for us in public? Anything?
Nothing in public.
I get 5
In
minutes.
public?
5 minutes to kill.
Just Pam?
Well, we have a public, well, you're probably here for the keynote public meeting.
You want that in non-public?
I have a,
Oh.
remember,
You should have seen the turnout. for
They
the
need their
railroad
keynote
stuff.
on her in case anybody comes in and asks questions.
You have to watch the first hour of this meeting. Very, very.
Oh, Michaela? I wanted to come home, but I couldn't come and come to you. I was like,
Yep.
so.
But watch it, it was some very good information, we had some politicians making.
Looks like we have some people here for keynote, so
There's a casino, but we really added a couple of
So this is your, okay.
That was from last week.
Okay.
I expected the petitioners, but. All right.
Okay, so this is, Gail, you want to just make some copies of this for the selectmen? Right here.
What is it?
It's a note from Nate about the dispatch hire.
Oh, okay.
And we all should read, we should all read it.
Okay.
So he did.
Okay. In the meantime, do we want to do selectmen's reports? We have 5 minutes. Peter, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, if you noticed, I did email Tony, I'd yet to hear back.
You emailed that last week.
Friday.
Friday?
I don't know if he's on vacation or what.
Okay.
What I can do is resend it beginning of next week if I don't hear anything. That's it.
So,
That was kind of a safety issue,
are
though.
those pictures on your phone?
I thought so.
Ashley, anything for us?
Well,
Huh?
can forward you the whole
Uh,
policy, can forward you the
The one thing that, Gail's gone, so I,
Then I'll print that out and cover it.
Cheryl asked me to make sure that at the school for the town meeting, that we make sure that the plugs are all working, because remember the last time we had the breakfast and the coffee, she had to go out and get Dunkin' Donuts because the plugs weren't working.
Plugs in the hallway or in the cafeteria? Which plug?
Right outside the.
Circuit.
No, that wasn't the issue. They were not working. There was only one plugged in, and
Are we
breakers.
talking in the lobby?
In the.
No,
in
when they
the-
plug in the ice cream machine, the soda machines that are.
So you're in the
going
cafeteria?
24/7.
You're in the cafeteria?
On the
Yeah.
outside of the cafeteria.
Okay.
Back wall.
Just
All
the
right.
back wall.
Because the election takes place first on Tuesday. Those outlets are already, right?
It should be.
Because we don't
They haven't
set
changed from previous
Yeah, we
years.
don't set up for the cafeteria. I'm just trying to think of.
I'll just get with Gail and do that. Did you talk to Parks about the hot dogs?
Yeah, what was the consensus?
They were going to talk to Pat.
Oh, they haven't.
Yeah, Joyce, if you could call Quentin from Aroma Joe's, he touched base with me today.
They were going to talk.
Yesterday.
Bob was going to talk to them. So that last week.
And then Gail said she spoke to you after that meeting, and she said it's not taking.
Yes.
No, well, I told you that
Joan, do you have anything for us tonight?
You said you'd call him. So, I said you would.
No, not really. The river's kind of high, it's looking away at the island.
You would give me his number.
Also the island lights, Joyce, they're
Oh,
on.
the light bulbs, I
Yeah.
got hooked up the bulbs.
Oh, well, the lights are on, but they're not turning off now. So
Oh, did you change?
No, I didn't touch anything. Before they aren't on at night, but now they're on at like 7:30 in the morning. They're all lit up.
Okay, there's either gremlins or poltergeists.
So, somebody has to figure out how to operate the timer on the island lights, please. And it.
The original.
Is it a digital one?
No, it's a regular, with, little things you put on, you set the
Oh,
dial.
I've got those. I'll look at it. I was going to say, I
Oh,
have 2 at
It would be
Riverfront
nice to
Park I
have one
deal with.
person in charge of it and get it right.
Oh, I'm not going to be in charge of it, but I'll go set it and make it ready.
Somebody else will go down there and make it run. That's,
All right.
that's why I stopped doing it, is because.
I'll go look at it, and if I think I am familiar with it,
And
I'll
then
get a hold
talk
of
to
Public
somebody.
Works or somebody here and have them go with me. So, thank you.
And the only other thing is, I wish we didn't use charge cards so much. I'm looking at this, I have $3,593.41 paid out to Visa First National Bank of Omaha for miscellaneous tech expense. And the amount of charges on these, you can see the charges that we've got. I don't think putting things on charge cards is a good way of doing things. That's it.
Oh, where did Joyce? So one of the things that was brought, it's time for a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. I'll hold that thought until Joyce comes here. So at this time, I'm going to open the public meeting to discuss Keno as per Chapter 229 of the 2017 New Hampshire laws, Senate Bill 191. We have to have a public hearing to discuss Keno in the town of Tilton.
Look at all of our residents here talking about Keno.
It was a petitioned warrant article, so the selectmen didn't bring it forward, but any of our public want to speak towards Keno? Sandy?
I just wanted to ask, is there a reason that the Board of Selectmen didn't put this on the ballot so that the townspeople could vote on it? Yea or nay?
I was one of the nays.
Okay.
And I'd be more than happy to say that I was extremely concerned about having more people drawn to the town of Tilton and the additional cost it might put on our police department, ambulance, fire, et cetera, et cetera. So in that respect, I felt for this year, I wanted to have a wait and see time, and I chose to vote no for this year and see how it affected other communities, because we were going to be provided that type of information, comparatively for Massachusetts, who's had it longer than us, and we really didn't get, in my opinion, adequate information to see if there was an impact.
Well, I mean, I think everything you're saying is valid. The only thing that I had an issue with is just the fact that this would be for our townspeople. Have you had any meetings at all to discuss your feelings with the townspeople as far as what you're concerned about, not concerned with? Because, I mean, in my mind, the decision on whether or not we're going to have Keno rests solely with the people in this community who vote in this community. I mean, I know from when I was a selectman, they are the bosses. They hired or, voted and elected the people sitting at that table. And anything that comes through like this would be a vote that they would be the ones in charge of. Now, everything that you have said, I think is very valid. I would never say that. But it just seems to me like you're not giving them the opportunity now at all to even address this issue. And that doesn't seem right to me.
Well, the law allowed the Board of Selectmen to make that ultimate decision whether they would approve it to go on. But the law also allows it to come by petition article. And I voted that way knowing it could come by petition warrant article.
I know that there is a petition
But
warrant article.
I also voted that way no, because I don't think the legislative body, because they're not privy to all the information the selectmen are about the nuances of the police department, to be able to make that decision. Is Keno going to affect our tax rate? Is it going to cause us to hire more staff?
Isn't it more your responsibility, not yours personally, but as a board, to educate the people as to what the pitfalls and the advantages, disadvantages, whatever they might be, would be to educate this public so that when they do go to the polls, they have a much better idea?
And that's why I felt if we delayed it a year, we could see what other communities experienced as far as my concerns were, and then we could have brought it forward. John, you want to speak?
I voted against it, and one of the things is, I look at gambling in general and the harm that does cause, and the whole thing is, first, if we don't have it until we will still get the money. We still receive all the funds or anything that will come from it. The second part is presently, like in our center of town, we have a couple of vape shops. We've had other types of shops that cater to smoking, and selling of spice at one time and things like that. Gambling doesn't really do, everybody loses in gambling. The odds of winning are very, very low, and they're worse than the odds of winning the lottery. So what happens is you have our restaurants that are, around here we live off of tourists. So you'll have our restaurants like the 99 or Applebee's or all those restaurants where people will be going down and just sort of hanging out and playing Keno. And those are places where you bring children and family and all that. If people want to gamble, they can go other towns as well and do that. And I didn't think the image for the town was good. The third thing is, as Catherine mentioned, there's towns such as, I believe, Concord turned it down, Dover turned it down this year. And that was the other part that Catherine said, wait a year, see how other towns do with how it all plays out, what problems it causes or what it doesn't cause. Another thing that we have is the Liquor Commission was supposed to put 5% of all of their sales aside to help people who have drinking problems. To date, they haven't done that. They have not contributed 5% of the funds that were put aside from the state liquor sales to treating people who have alcohol problems. And we do have a pretty big alcohol problem in the state. The state of New Hampshire, or the Lottery Commission, stated that they would go and put a certain percentage aside to help people that have gambling problems. Well, if you don't have gambling, you won't have gambling problems. Let's get this straightened out, make sure that it is in order, and approach it in a more thoughtful way. The state lottery has a lot of money to spend on advertising this and saying how great it is and how we're helping children. Let's not educate our children on the sales of gambling and losses of others. I didn't think this was a good time yet. And obviously, by the showing of zero, except for yourself, of people, and Jane, I'm assuming Jane's for it, nobody showed up for this hearing to say how great it is. Nobody showed up. And as a selectman, I think it would be irresponsible for us to act on it this year.
No, I don't want you to sit there and think that I'm for it and I'm against it. I mean, my main issue is the fact that it was not, in my mind, presented in a way that it would be up to the voters. And they may very well come back and say, no, we don't want that in our town. But now you're not giving them the opportunity to even discuss it. And everything that you have brought up tonight, I mean, when I go to the restaurant with my grandson, if the guy in the next table over is making a spectacle out of himself because he's drinking too much, that's as much of an inconvenience. We don't know at this point, and I don't know if you've done research, I did do some reading on it, where they have these Keno machines is mostly in the bar area where you wouldn't have children anyway. But for you to sit there, I mean, those are your opinions, and I'm not saying they're not good opinions, but that's not necessarily the way everyone feels about it. And they are the ones that vote for these things. So it just seems like, you know, especially when I went through all the minutes looking for meetings where you discussed this.
We have a meeting.
And, you know, with the public, and it hasn't been at all.
This is it.
We had a meeting when the commissioner was
Yeah,
here
I was
for
just
the
going to
lottery.
say, we had a meeting.
You had
And then we had one after that.
I read that.
Right.
Yes. But it just seems like more should have been done. How many people are out there that never really look at anything little in the newspaper anyway, that don't even know the public hearing is happening tonight? Yeah.
Peter, did you have something you wanted to
It was a split vote. I was voting to let the voters choose. I figured even if I'm like for or against it, this is something that affects all, and I wanted to let the voters, I was in the minority on that.
Jane?
Yeah, by the way, John, I didn't come here for the meeting, I came to the location.
Oh.
All right, I had I didn't know that Keno public hearing was taking place.
Oh, that's not good.
However, now that I'm here and it's come up, I cannot sit here and keep my mouth shut. My wife. First of all, I think that what I've heard tonight from the Board of Selectmen in terms of Keno is specious reasoning. You already have gambling in the town. It's called scratch tickets, and I love those. I don't like Keno, but I love them. You've got lottery tickets, and I'd like to know from the Board of Selectmen how much educational funds are provided to this town from the Lottery Commission now. Gambling. I believe it's quite a bit. I think the state education fund
Goes to the
gets
district.
a great deal of money because of it. But, you know, my main reason is very much like Sandy's. I don't think that it's up to a board of 5 people to make a decision as to what is going to happen within this town. I think that it should be turned over to the voters and they should have a chance to make that decision. That's just my own personal opinion. However, since other things came up about Keno, I have to tell you this. I love pizza. I don't like Keno, but I love pizza. And one of my favorite pizza places is right over in Franklin. Happens to be the only establishment in Franklin that has Keno.
They have it at the VFW.
Oh, do they? Well, I don't go to the VFW. I wasn't in the Florida war. I was only on the soil here down in Selma, Alabama. But that was another war. Anyway, I went over to the Brickyard, or whatever the name is, some nice little pizza place over in Franklin.
Woodside.
And I'll tell you,
That's what she said.
I had to fight my way through that crowd. I could barely, I was like this, trying to get in the door. There were 4 people in that place. Pat, me, and 2 other people. Oh, and the owner was there too. And nobody was playing Keno. Not a soul. So I just wanted to share that little experience. I also talked to one of our fire commissioners who had the same experience I had in our favorite little pizza joint, and there was no one there playing Keno. So I think that's why I said I think it's pretty specious reasoning that all these people are going to pour into the town of Tilton to play Keno, because I don't think it's, if you look at odds in gambling, and I did look this up, the worst odds for any gambler is Keno. So gamblers don't play Keno. They go to racetracks and things like that, and they go, and I think you got one over in Belmont, Bellevue, and you got a casino over there. So I don't think Tilton would have to worry about all these unsavory characters flooding their way in.
We'll see.
But that's just my opinion, so I just had to share that story. But good pizza over there in Franklin where they play Keno.
Any other comments?
I was in the minority, and I feel the same way as Peter. I feel very strongly that no matter whether I'm for it or against it, I felt that it should be out there for the legislative body to decide whether or not they wanted it in the town of Tilton. And I mean, that's it. I spent years driving an hour to pick my dad up to go to Massachusetts. He was handicapped, to go to a very nice establishment, a nice restaurant, so he could play Keno, and he loved it. And it was my hour and a half time with my dad, and we were about the only one in that restaurant playing Keno, but he loved it. And I didn't see any unsavory people in there, and I enjoyed my time with my dad. But I'm not for it, and I'm not against it. I think really it's up to the people in the town of Tilton whether they want it. So it's the way it is.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Sure.
So we're all talking about allowing the people of Tilton to vote, but it is on the warrant.
Yes, it is.
Article.
That's the vote.
And the vote's still going to go either way.
Right.
So why does it matter whether or not the Board of Selectmen approve it or not?
Well, unless the petition warrant article came forward, it was
It was going to be.
it was a dead deal. It was not going to be put on the ballot.
So, but now that's a moot point because there
That's
is a
correct.
petition warrant.
Right, the selectmen voted before the deadline for petition warrant articles to come out, knowing full well that a petition warrant article would probably be written, so
And yes, there was
it's
a
almost
chance to
redundant.
educate, and you guys do put it on, just for the record, I'm saying this, you do put it on your website, what the agenda is, you do post it.
That's correct.
Outside. So it was posted, I'm sure the petitioners knew, and yet no one showed up.
No one should.
So it seems like
That's Tilton, New Hampshire.
I mean, the meeting with the,
Most
Sweeps-
people know what Keno is, so this is just for
Exactly,
people that don't know what Keno is all about. And a lot of people do know what Keno is all about, and you can go on the New Hampshire Lottery Commission's website and find out what Keno is and get all the answers.
I don't know.
And get all the answers, the questions and that they have answered. So a lot
Except
of,
it's the lotteries tilt towards the answers. That's
A little biased.
a little bit biased because it's going to create more
I'm sure it's the
Well,
lottery.
lots of
Democracy.
people would want to know more about what kind of impact and whether, and now here's another question, would there be a limit on how many, or can every storefront?
it has to be someone that says has
We
a
have to have
liquor
a liquor
license.
license.
Okay.
Has to have a liquor license.
And the money goes to, will supposedly go to kindergarten.
Right, but.
All day kindergarten.
Yeah.
All-day kindergarten, but the school district doesn't have mandatory all-day kindergarten. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It doesn't fully fund it.
We'll see.
It doesn't fully fund it. It
Oh,
allows
no,
for
it's,
some
and it's a
towards it.
small amount, and it's whatever is available
And it's
after,
actually, it's $1,100.
but
If I
it's,
can trust my fellow reporter.
or it's whatever is available after the sweepstakes commission pays their expenses.
From what I.
And then that's divided up amongst the communities that have full-day
Public hearing
kindergarten.
in Bristol stated that it's $1,100, and should the income from Keno fall short of that, they would take a portion of the funds from the general fund in order to make up that $1,100 per student.
The sweepstakes commission's general fund.
That could be.
Otherwise, they'll be really upset that they're not
I'm-
fixing Cable Hill Road.
So I had a question. So if it comes short, after they pay all of the people that work for the Lottery Commission doing it and all of their expenses, and it comes short, they'll borrow money from somewhere else. So this could actually cost money,
So here is
but provide.
So here is a statement from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. If the amount of revenue raised through Keno is less than enough to fund these additional grants, the grants will be reduced proportionally, but not below $1,100 per student. Thus, districts will receive a minimum of $1,100 and a maximum of roughly $1,800 per full-time student,
If there's enough.
depending upon the amount of Keno revenue. And that actually is very clear in the bill. if you
Now,
read the
does
bill.
it say if they don't have enough money for the $1,100, where would that money come from?
No, it doesn't say in here.
So they would have to draw that money from another source?
I would suspect, I don't have the bill in front of me, but I know it's written in the bill.
This is an interesting
That'll be the
paragraph right here
question.
from the meeting.
That'd be the questions.
We'll find out if Keno passes.
If it does not generate,
Well, I guess the district will find out.
if it does not generate enough income, the portion of the kindergarten funding would come from the state's general fund. Now, this is just a statement from somebody,
This is from a public hearing.
from a public hearing. So that was, one of those other questions that it could actually cost us money.
Well, the other question is, because we belong to a district, the money doesn't come to the town of Tilton, the money goes to the district. So how is that money proportioned, or will it even be proportioned between the three towns that are in the district to reduce any taxes?
It won't, 'cause it's a
It will
cooperative.
strictly go to the district. So Tilton taxpayers will feel absolutely no benefit from having Keno. Jane.
Just for a point of information, there is a petition warrant article on the school, for the school district meeting this year for all-day kindergarten.
Yeah, that comes every year. Thank you for letting us know.
It's a different one though.
Yeah, but
This
it-
one is a little bit different.
A little different?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Does anyone else have anything to
No.
comment on Keno or questions to ask?
No.
Good. All right, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing on Keno. And that is a warrant article. Even though it came by petition, it is a warrant. And I believe it's one of the first, isn't that one of the first ones on the warrant?
It is.
Is it number 2? I thought it was one more.
All right. Is there anything else for public? Oh, Joyce, yes. My selectmen's report. So Senator Gaida impressed upon us at least 2 or 3 times that we need to get Caleb Hill Road onto the 10-year plan. Now that's done through the TAC committee, is it not?
The TAC, yes, they make recommendations.
They make recommendations.
Yes.
Or Lakes Region Planning.
Well,
That is
TAC is part of Lakes Region Planning.
It's the Technical Advisory Committee of Lakes Region Planning Commission.
Right. So has Brock been attending those meetings?
He has not.
So how do we get,
I take that back, he was at one today.
oh good, how do we get that into the 10-year plan? I believe, now they make recommendations to whom for this? To DOT?
Well, there's the Transportation Commission, GASSET.
That's right.
Governor's Advisory Committee on Transportation, and annually. And so those recommendations go to the GASSET Commission, and the GASSET Commission, I believe, from there, it's approved by the legislature.
And I suspect they've already gone through that process, the TAC committee,
Yep,
of the 10-year plan.
yeah,
Because I've been through that process several times over the years.
yep.
What is the avenue for us to get this onto the 10-year plan? To bypass TAC?
Well, it sounded like he was going to do that, but we
No,
don't.
he kept turning to us saying, you need to get this. So can we
Yeah, he did.
elicit
Can we-
Senator Gaida's help to get this
Yeah.
on that 10-year plan? And I suspect we're going to have to do this very quickly.
Yeah, he said April is the finalizing of that.
Yes.
And what about Winter Street too, if it's only gonna be resurfaced and not
Well,
even-
let's do both.
Yeah.
And also to send everything to the governor's office so that the
Yep.
administration can
Right.
fund.
All right. So let's move on this quickly. Is that okay?
Watching what went on for the
Oh,
first
I-
hour.
I spent last Monday night watching your lovely last meeting and watching it again, I'm sure.
There's some big stuff going on.
I would love to, yes.
Glad to see
At
you.
least I'm trying to travel that road quite frequently.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you can talk about School Street and the local field out there too.
Yeah, you should
School
give-
Street's a numbered route.
I sent you a picture, Donna.
I think it's
I
127.
sent you a
isn't it?
picture of the board
Streets are not
with
numbered.
the committee, Kathy Mitchell sent it.
Oh,
I emailed it to
127
you
for
and
Franklin.
said to give me a call, and
Past the
I
dam,
can give
heading
you
into
background
Santa.
information, and we've
The
got some
Geza.
photographs I can email you, and
Perfect.
it can make
What
a
is
nice
Park
story.
Street?
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Yep.
We're at 132.
132,
Sand Street.
It's
and
not a
there's
numbered street.
Sanborn.
Sand Road.
It goes down to 132.
Yeah. It's not a numbered route.
It's state owned.
Yeah, but they plow it. So I wonder what class it is. That's redundant.
All right.
All right.
Make a
So,
motion to go into non-public for RSA 91A:3 personnel.
Second.
Yeah, thank you, Donna.
so we're going in for,
Oh, do you want to do this in public, this one?
Drive safe.
Wait a minute.
we're going into
We can do this in public.
B, the hiring of any person, or are we going into dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee?
Non-public would be hiring, but this, we can do this one in public.
Which one have we got?
Dispatch. Dispatch, the letter that we
I thought we were going to continue to discuss this because we haven't actually hired.
Okay, good. And I stand by my motion, and Ashley seconded it, non-public for personnel.
Well, it's not just personnel, it's the hiring of any
Hiring
person
of any
as a
person.
public employee. Yes.
You? You want to?
Roll call vote, please.
Five yes.
Jane, can you turn my phone?
Constantino, yes.
Dawson, yes.
Good night.
Scanlon, yes.
All right.
When I was downstairs, I talked to Tim, and he went through all these things.
All right, good night, ladies. Thank you so much for coming, Sandy. It was good to see you. You look wonderful.
Okay.
How's Joe? Ready?
Red is on.
I'll make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session.
Does it change the person?
Personnel,
Permanent.
permanently.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yes.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Nice. Thank you, everybody.